Welcome to Western Water Weekly. This is your weekly roundup of water news reported by western-water.com. Each Sunday, we break down what happened across the Colorado River Basin states. Our goal is to make complex water issues clear and relevant for laypeople. Let's get started.
Well, hello, everybody. We're going to try something a little bit different now. You get me live. My name's Deborah. I write a bunch of news stories on westernwater.com, and we'll just whittle it down into video format right now, hitting on some of the key issues that have happened. Of course, everybody's talking about the Colorado River. It's like whenever you look up water, that's all there is. The governors and I think just a representative from California met with the feds because the deadline is coming up on February 14th to come up with an operating plan for the system. Now it's sounding like that's not going to happen. So they have until October. But let's look at some of the other things happening in water in the West. The first thing is groundwater. It's the big thing. It's the big central issue that everybody's looking at. One of the problems in the West is that surface water is becoming unreliable, and that's because of uneven snowpack, and runoff is becoming unpredictable. And so that means that the aquifers are having to do more of the heavy lifting. Even in Wyoming, where they typically don't do a lot of meddling in regulations, lawmakers have now directed the state engineer to conduct mandatory water studies in designated control areas. These are places where groundwater is already stressed, and the studies aren't going to look just at how much water is being pumped, but whether the aquifers are realistically recharging. So that's Wyoming. Over in Arizona, it's they're taking another angle for the tough issue about groundwater. Just recently, the Arizona Department of Water Resources designated what they call the Renegris Plain as an active management area. That means there's more conservation rules, and people have to report on their groundwater pumping if the groundwater is being pumped over 35 gallons per minute. So that typically doesn't affect your typical like house or maybe a little tiny business that isn't using a lot of water. It's mostly the big ag and industrial operators who are targeted by this. But anyway, the big stink in Arizona has been in that area of the state has been the Fondamonte groundwater pumping. Fondamonte is the Saudi Arabian company that's been growing alfalfa out there and then shipping the alfalfa back home. So anyway, they started this AMA, and the Attorney General now, Chris Mays, is saying that the regulation alone isn't going to cut it. She's going to continue a lawsuit that has been in place where they're trying to say that this groundwater pumping is a nuisance and it's causing harm like land subsidence. And what land subsidence is when ground starts sinking because of so much water being pumped out of the aquifer. Anyway, states, they're no longer treating groundwater as something they can deal with later. It's turning into a big thing, and I think we're going to be seeing more and more lawsuits over it. Meanwhile, the science is getting better, including our measurement tools. So in Arizona, what they are now using through SRP and other water managers, they have aircraft equipped with advanced sensors that map snow depth and snow water content across entire river basins. This way, instead of just sparse measurements, they're creating really high resolution maps that are going to tell them how much water is locked into the mountain snow and basically when it's going to make it to the reservoirs. Snow in Arizona, like all the other states out in the West, is the most important resource because that snow melt is what seeps into the aquifers, makes its way to the streams and rivers, and is stored. There's also a new national study that's using machine learned trained data on millions of wells all over the country. And what they're doing is measuring how shallow the groundwater is because they're saying that shallow groundwater is way more widespread than what the older course maps suggest. Um, and it has an effect on streams and ecosystems. Another place that you could check out is Nevada. They've put a planning tool online that you can access, and it shows how ecosystems dependent on groundwater differ under different soil and climate conditions. It's not a regulatory tool, but it gives decision makers a better picture of what's being traded off before the damage becomes irreversible. So the thing is, you're going to see lawsuits and also a quest for better data when it comes to groundwater. Another thing, the courts, I think, are going to become more and more involved in water issues. And there was a really interesting case that made it to Colorado Supreme Court.
In Byers Peak Properties versus Byers Peak Land and Cattle, two neighboring ranches in Grand County had been sharing irrigation water for decades after a single ranch was split in the 1970s. Two ditches pulled water from St. Louis Creek, and for years, everyone mostly got along. Until they didn't. The East Ranch owners claimed the West Ranch was diverting more water than needed, and that the extra water ran downhill, flooding their land. They took the case to water court, arguing water waste, excess diversions, and even trespass and nuisance. But on January 26, 2026, the Colorado Supreme Court stepped in and hit the reset button. The court made 4 big points. First, Colorado's water waste statute isn't something neighbors can sue over. It's enforced by the state, not private landowners. Second, the excess water statutes protect water rights, not property damage from runoff. Third, once those water claims fell apart, the water court no longer had jurisdiction over trespass or nuisance claims tied to flooding. And finally, because the underlying claims failed, the court tossed out the operational injunction that had restricted how the ranch could divert water. The takeaway? If you think a neighbor is wasting water, that's a state engineer issue. If your land is flooding, that may be a district court problem. Different harm, different courtroom, same ditch. And that distinction just got a lot clearer in Colorado water law.
Another big theme that's been coming up is to stretch water supplies by finding new sources, even when the science is unsettled. In New Mexico, lawmakers have introduced a bill that would require regulators to create permits for using treated oil and gas wastewater for everything from industrial processes to road dust control, even potential discharge into water bodies. And, people support this as an innovation in a water scarce state. But of course, you have opponents who are saying the science just isn't there yet, especially when that wastewater can contain hundreds of contaminants, many of which don't even have water quality standards. Policymakers out there are feeling pressure to act quickly, and environmental advocates are urging caution. So the gap between urgency and uncertainty is widening across the West. Another thing that has become urgent is wildfire. And the Interior Department is now sending some more funding into rural fighting capacity, especially the small agencies in rural areas that desperately need equipment and trained personnel as these huge wildfires are becoming more intense. They're also putting money into training the young people on the tribes to become firefighters.
A new Federal Register executive order, signed January 29, 2026 by Donald Trump, signals a major shift in how disaster rebuilding could work after wildfires. The order targets rebuilding delays in Los Angeles fire zones, blaming state and local permitting, environmental reviews, and governance failures. It directs Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Small Business Administration to draft rules that could bypass local permits, rely on builder self-certification, and compress environmental reviews when federal disaster money is involved. Importantly, nothing changes overnight. Agencies have 30 days to propose rules and 90 days to finalize them. The bigger takeaway? This order puts federal authority, local land use, environmental law, and disaster recovery on a direct collision course, with implications far beyond Los Angeles.
So whatever's going to happen about that, we don't know, but it raises questions about water systems, land use, environmental protections, and who has authority. Is it local or is it federal? So another issue about water, the commercial bottled water market. So you have premium bottled water and functional, basic kind of water that most of us can afford. That market is growing rapidly. And part of that is that it's being modeled as part of wellness and lifestyle. But there are some concerns being raised about microplastics, chemical contaminants known as PFAS or forever chemicals in the water itself, and recycling failures. So, as people are dealing with infrastructure drought, people are turning to private water products like bottled water, but now they're questioning its safety. So, this will be a thing to watch for. Finally, that takes us to what's going on with the drought. According to the latest U.S. Drought Monitor, much of the western states, especially in the Colorado River Basin, are pretty much locked into a snow drought. Storms have been scattered. We've seen all kinds of storms out east, but over the headwaters where we need that water, it's lagging. Soil moisture is declining, stream flows are lagging, and warmer than normal temperatures are all working against recovery. So, in short, the conditions haven't collapsed, they haven't improved, the system's holding, but it's not healing. So that's basically the theme across the West for the last 2 weeks in water news, is that we're managing risk, not abundance. So to keep up on water news, we report it every single day, except Sunday. Go to western-water.com. Your comments are welcome, and we will see you next week. Bye.
That wraps up this week's Western Water Weekly. All of the stories we covered are reported in full at western-water.com. Be sure to check back next Sunday for our next roundup. Thanks for watching.